Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. You are in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza, and I'm really excited to speak with our guest today because 2020, for those that have been listening to the podcast, know that it is a mirror year, and it is a lot that is coming to the surface that was hidden. And for some people, it's been the gamut of upheaval, and it's been a gamut of growth. And for some people, when that happened, depending on what side you're on, they may say, God, please help me find a job, if you found a job, right? Or if you lost your job. And did you know that there's an author that also came out with a book called God, Please Help Me Find a Job? And not only is that the title, not kidding, she also has 21 prayers for the job seeker. We're going to find out more about this guest. She goes by the name of Sonia Cameron. And just a little bit about her, she's been in the field of working with customers in career success. And she's a successful career coach. She helps people with career transitions, a lot of people in 2020. And she also works with people who are not doing what they love full time and getting paid for it. So that can include the unemployed, the underemployed, those who fear they may lose their job, those working on a plan B and C, and those wanting to work for themselves instead of an employer. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sonia Cameron to the podcast. Welcome, Sonia.
Hi, Hamza. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
But of course, and some people may say, how come I didn't have this guest on earlier? Back in March when I lost my job. I mean, it's a lot of people. And the stats that I've seen just yesterday, this is an election year, and they say the unemployment is the highest it's been since they recorded unemployment back in 1948 during a presidential election. So there are a lot of people going through these transitions, and I think a person with your expertise would be great to share your insight.
Yes, it's definitely something that has been caused by the pandemic. A lot of industries have gone away, actually, and there are a lot of people who have been furloughed or find themselves unemployed or, just in a transition state. And so that's why I wrote the book, is I had a heart for those people. I actually wrote the book during the pandemic in the beginning in April. And because when I heard 17 million people file for unemployment, my heart was just broken. And I was like, what can I do to help these people? And since I had experience writing prayers for my blog, 𝓝𝓮𝓮𝓭.com, I decided that I would write a book of prayers for those who find themselves in career transition during this COVID-19 season. And it just flowed out of me. I mean, it was just easy to write. It took me about 3 weeks to write it. And then I just sent it out and had people review it and took their comments, and now we have the finished product.
Very nice, very nice. And it sounds like I'm a big surfer. I love to surf, and it's always great to surf when you have a wave. And when the wave is really good, you get a good ride out of that. And it sounds like a partnership, if you will. I'm sure we're going to get into that further into the podcast. But when you are in line with the universe, it seems like you can do no wrong, like you are in a flow state. And it sounds like something that you went through when you put pen to paper to write this book.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was just, amazing thing. It took me back to when, some situations that I found myself in when I was looking for a job. I work in corporate America as well. So, writing this book is kind of like my plan B. So I have a full-time job with a firm in Research Triangle Park. And I have been there and done that. I've been laid off. I've been fired. I've been all of those things. So I just went back to those seasons where I was looking for a job, and just reminded myself of the emotions that I went through and the process that I went through, in that job search. And and it was easy. It made it easy just to, empathize with my fellow Americans that are out there that are, in career transition.
Sure. So, but I have a lot of questions for that. But the first one I want to ask you did say RTP, and RTP is near and dear to my heart personally here in Atlanta because I spent a lot of time at Duke and UNC and Research Triangle Park for research labs. And so there's a huge, small world, very small world. And
wow.
I know that it's a hub there, and what's really rough here in Georgia is I was also a part of recruiting companies to come to Atlanta, and when we would lose in the debrief, we would either lose them to Florida or we would lose them to RTP, and this is in the biology space, biological sciences or genomics, and at the time they were doing research labs, research buildings, research parks. And in RTP, there's a cluster with all the universities, and they had the new ones in Miami and West Palm Beach, but Georgia didn't have it. And so I know that RTP has a strong technology base. And so
Absolutely.
With that, I wanted to ask you, because with COVID, it's really interesting because we speak with people, and I hear from people globally. And so initially you would think, oh, what is it like in Madagascar or these far-off places? But fortunately or unfortunately, in the United States, every state seems to be responding differently to COVID. So my first question is, what is the environment like in RTP? And then the second part would be, I'll let you answer the first question first.
Right now, the environment in RTP is similar to probably the rest of the United States. I mean, a lot of people are working from home, so a lot of the, corporate buildings and stuff are empty or, staffed with a skeleton staff. My personal experience, that's what I do. I work from home on a full-time basis. And, according to my organization, it's an indefinite thing that we'll be working from home indefinitely. And I don't have a lot of experience with everybody that's in the park, but that's been the experience that I've, talked to some of my colleagues and even my colleagues outside of the institution where I work. And, just about everybody is working from home. So there's not the same hustle and bustle in the park as it used to be.
Sure. And one thing that I take away from what you just said was what you've heard from colleagues outside of the park. And unfortunately, I can say for the last 20 years, I can say that industries have been either leaving the states to go overseas, or they've been replaced either through artificial intelligence or manufacturing and what have you. And the fact that you are speaking with colleagues outside of your immediate environment, I'd like for you to talk about that, because I know people, if I'm an accountant, I only talk to accountants, and my network may not be as strong when we have to go through a transition like we're going through now.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been trying to do, and is difficult when everybody is quarantining and being socially distant, is to continue my network. I just recently joined an online portal called Lunch Club, and that way you get to have a virtual lunch with other people And so I started having virtual lunches, and that has helped me to expand my network and meet new people, meet people working in different technologies. The last lunch I had, I talked to a gentleman named Mark, and he works in machine learning and artificial intelligence. So, that's, I work in technology too, but that's like much far advanced than what I do on a daily basis. But yeah, so just about everybody that I've talked to, accountants and business people are working remotely.
Now, the other thing you mentioned is that in your office, you guys used to go there 9 to 5 or what have you, and now it's indefinite. And so what does that mean? And the reason why I'm asking it that way is because today is October 7th, and in, I want to say it was April or May, there were the airlines, and they were asking their employees to take early on retirement, and there was some furlough talk. And then last month, there were a lot of layoffs. And then just this month, we've had, Wells Fargo and some of the other banks that are going through the same thing, like furloughs or just straight layoffs. So is that a sign that this is what's to come when someone says that we're going to have this indefinite working relationship where you're not into the office? Is that something we should be aware of?
I think it's based on the firm itself. The firm that I work for is a technology firm, and so the transition from being in the office to working from home was very smooth because, before COVID, I was working from home occasionally, maybe 1 or 2 days a week. So to do it on a semi-permanent basis was an easy transition. I think it just depends on the industry itself. Of course, an airline is going to have layoffs because there's nobody flying anymore. Well, very few people flying. Hotels, there are very few people traveling. So, of course, they're going to have layoffs as well. But I think it's, based on the industry itself, what the future holds. And, we can only hope that things will improve on an economic basis so that people can return to work. I've been telling a lot of people that have come to me recently that even though they may find themselves furloughed, they can create their own work by going to websites like Upwork and Fiverr and, hiring out their skills. Because, most people nowadays have specific skill sets that are marketable. And they don't have to be completely unemployed. They can hire themselves out to do certain things and actually sometimes be very profitable doing that as well.
Yeah, you really bring up a really good point when you talk about the gig economy. And the other thing you mentioned was it was a smooth transition where you didn't necessarily work from home pre-COVID all the time, but you found that it was a smooth transition. And a lot of companies are finding that they're saving a lot of money by, not having you call in late because you're stuck in traffic or you got to drop the kids off and what have you. The reports, we're 7 months in now, that's showing that companies that are open at least are performing really well because everyone's at home. So with an indefinite, that's what I'm kind of just sticking with. Do you think this is the new normal and that there will be a part of, we'll get into getting a job, but I'm getting the sneaky suspicion that you will say that even if you get a job, you may not be there for 25, 30 years, and retire and get the gold watch, or does that still exist?
No, that's an antiquated thought. That doesn't happen that often unless you have some government job somewhere. Usually in regular corporate America, the span is 3 to 5 years, if that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rare thing to see someone at a company for 25, 30 years anymore. It happens. Don't get me wrong. It does happen, but it's a rarity.
And the other side of that, I'm thinking about all of the teachers that didn't go back when school started last month, and they had the job, but the risk associated with being around all those children and the work environment as a whole just seemed contrary to staying healthy. And so when you have these work at home, is that the ideal situation that you're telling folks now, or do you see that? I know we all want some sense of normalcy, and there's always a talk when things get back to normal. But is that even realistic, or is that something that we would, like you said, could be a potential 3 to 5 year plan?
Well, I think working from home is definitely a preference. Like, there are some people who prefer to be on site. So I think, the choice to work from home is an individual choice. So if that's what you like to do, then, you would definitely look for those remote roles. But I think there are always room for people who want to be out, in the public, as some people would say, and not at home, but actually be on site. There is still a need for a lot of people to be on site. And, their need for essential workers all over the place. So, I think it's just a personal preference whether a person works from home or not. I think it may be, sometimes it depends on the industry that you're in. It may be easier to find a remote work role during this COVID season, because there are a lot of corporations that are hiring for remote workers.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do think that's a personal preference.
Sure. I'm thinking that there's pros and cons in everything, and some of the pros were my gasoline bill went way down, and my dry cleaning bill went way down. But have you seen some benefits from working at home, just from speaking with some of your clients or people that are potentially looking for jobs? And have you seen any cons of that? This is, from a national standpoint, it's new territory, where initially it was novel, and not the coronavirus, but it was a novel idea of working from home. And yeah, I get to, work in my pajamas or what have you, but we're 7 months in, and now the new car smell is worn off a little bit.
Right. There are some, of course there are perks from working from home, but there are some challenges for parents. A lot of parents are, finding challenges because they have children, school-age children that are at home. And so just juggling that work role and parent role and teacher role all in one has been a challenge. And there's been some statistics that a lot of women who have children have had to, leave their jobs in order to support their children at home, during the COVID season. So there are some hiccups when it comes to working from home. It's not all, peaches and cream. But, of course, like you said, there are perks too. So there are pros and cons in every situation.
Mm-hmm. There's some chatter online about women and how everyone's responding to COVID. And so in some of these, there was a study in July, and they said that during World War II, there was the baby boom because the war was over, and we're looking at American excellence and everything that went with that. But at the time, we had the nuclear family. And today, there's been some conversation of for women and men, or like you said, if they had kids at home, where they're reevaluating, hey, I've been juggling from a woman's standpoint, juggling their job full time and juggling children. Is it worth it, or should I take a different role where we're actually saving the money from daycare and just chasing them around and let the husband be the breadwinner? Are you seeing any changes in the family dynamic?
That's an excellent question. I personally have not experienced a whole lot of changes in family dynamic, but I know that I have friends who are, like I said, juggling it all, doing it all: mother, teacher, wife, homemaker. Like, they're doing it all, and my hat comes off to them. And they make it look easy. A lot of times people don't understand, what planning and what preparation goes into being a mom, especially if you're, have children that are school age and at home, and managing all of that, not even given the fact that you may have more than one child, so you have several different age groups at home. That's a challenge in and of itself. So my kudos is off to those moms that are, educating their kids at home, and as well as, having a career as well. That is a feat that a lot of men can't even handle, So the family dynamic is, definitely one that has been changing over the last 10, 20 years. With, both parents working and, sharing responsibility of home life as well. So I don't think it would be any different during the COVID season, but of course there's definitely more put on the female part of the equation than on the male part. That's my perspective.
Sure, there's good and bad in every situation, like we were talking about pros and cons, and what we're seeing some industries thrive in this environment. For one is technology, right? Like the big 6 tech firms are the ones that are predominantly, keeping the stock market afloat. And other industries that I'm seeing is family law attorneys. And what I guess what we're talking about when you're talking about the planning and preparation, this is the first time that couples have to face, this dynamic where they're both in each other's face for 24 hours a day. And how do they respond to that, and with the kids and all? So, some just throwing in the towel and just saying get a divorce, and others are trying to fight through it. And so it just seems like we're in a state of flux. And my question to that is, the other industry that will be in demand for the next couple of years will be psychologists and psychiatrists. So my question with that is, yes, parents are going to have somewhere, or they're going to need a way to vent of what they're going through. But what about the children? Is this a good opportunity to teach the children resilience when you're talking about the gig economy, where, it doesn't take 24 hours of your day, but you could still sell your services in addition to your full-time job?
Yeah, I always believe in having a plan B or a plan C. It's definitely important. I mean, if COVID didn't teach us anything else, is that you need multiple streams of income. As far as the children, children, see and they do what they see. So I think it's imperative that we teach our children, yes, you can be good at more than one thing and, multitask. And it's always good to have a profitable hobby,
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that, this COVID has definitely caused a lot of people to rethink, their work situation and also think, okay, let me do something entrepreneurial. Let me see what I can do to, whether it's participating in the gig economy or not. Like, let me see what else can I do in order to have multiple streams of income.
Sure. And it's really interesting even having this conversation because I don't think anyone knew COVID was coming, but in the business environment here in Atlanta, everyone always had 2 cards in their suit jacket, right? It was like your day job corporate card and then your side hustle card. And so it's just really interesting of preparation or just looking to see what other opportunities are out there. And the other part that I think about is in 2008 when we were going through this again, and because of that, the outcome was like places like Airbnb that didn't exist. From a technology standpoint, are you seeing, or is it too early to identify new industries that are emerging in response to COVID?
That's an excellent question. I would have to say that I don't know of any new industries that have come about because of COVID, but I do know that there are a lot of people who are, looking at that plan B or plan C or trying to gain new skills, that new marketable skills that they can use to generate income. I know for a fact that not only myself wrote a book, but there are a lot of new authors that are out there. A lot of people took the opportunity of being quarantined and actually finished a book or wrote a new book, and just decided to use their creativity to, produce something that didn't exist before. So, and I think there are a lot of creatives out there that are using this opportunity to reinvent themselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. In my email today, I received from the Financial Times, and they were the title of the article was "Coronavirus Sparks Surge of Women Entrepreneurs." And so, it sounds like women are used to wearing several hats. And with that being said, is this your first book? And I know that it was smooth in writing it out, but was there planning or preparation as far as how the book should be crafted, or was it just a stream of consciousness?
Basically, it started out just a stream of consciousness. Like, I just wanted to write these prayers. I did a mind map starting out and, did it by subject and, the job search process, the emotions of a job seeker, the desires of a job seeker. So I kind of had groups of prayers. And then basically what I did was, organize those prayers based on that mind map and did an outline based on that mind map. So, yeah, for me, it was definitely a time to, just write things out. And this was not my first book. Actually, this is just my first book that was published. I have a manuscript that I started on several years ago, and I just could never get it together, so to say. But this book, it was actually a passion project of mine. I just felt like I needed to get it out, and it was urgent that I got this book out to help people during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure. Now, what I'm hearing, my takeaway, or a couple of things that you were saying. One was the mind map and creating a mind map. And it sounds, I know in the business world we use it a lot, but for those not in the business world, it sounds a lot like a vision board, if you will. And if you're writing your goals or how you plan for this project to be completed, if you can have a visual representation of it, it's easier to create or bring to fruition. And the second part, it sounds like I want to talk about your communication strategies that you've implemented in just with yourself and then Supernatural, because that is a silver lining of 2020 where it sounds like you were a perfect example of what many of us were going through pre-COVID, and that, oh yeah, I have a book in me. Yeah, it's going to get published sometime, right? There's no end goal, there's no mind map, there's none of that. And then 2020 was like, well, you don't have any time to do anything else.
Right.
So how did you determine that? Because there's some person right now, hopefully, if you're listening to this, and you have that book inside you and you haven't started writing yet or had that stream of consciousness, how are you able to pick up and know that it was time to write this book at this present moment?
Well, of course, I felt like there was a need, and I had a sense of urgency about it. So, and I felt like if I didn't write it, that somebody out there would be missing something. That I felt like it would definitely bless a lot of people, and cause a lot of people to become closer to God. And that's the purpose that I felt it would serve. And just the mind map was a concept that I was not familiar with until I started talking to an editor that I happened to meet at a party. And, she told me, I was telling her, I really want to write a book, but I can't seem to get my thoughts together. And she was like, you should do a mind map. And, and so I just Googled mind maps and started with the poster board and a felt marker and just started writing things out. And, it came together. It really helped me pull my thoughts together.
Do you think that you'll take this mind map and use it for every version of your life now?
I don't know for every portion of my life, but it definitely helps you organize your thoughts, and it helps you be more strategic in crafting paragraphs and crafting stories. It makes you do things on purpose and not just because you need to fill the paper. Like there's a method to the madness.
No, I think that's so huge, and thanks for giving a clearer clarification, because that could be the argument. And then if we're pointing fingers, like some people, I used to be like that, so I'll use myself as an example. If I didn't use a mind map, I may think, oh, I'm procrastinating, or I just don't want to get it done, or maybe it's not meant to be. And then when I put it in a visual format, then it was able, like you said, it gives you that roadmap to organize your thoughts. And so would you work with people to develop mind maps, their own?
Yeah. I mean, to me, a mind map is just, brainstorming and putting it on paper, just, making circles and, just putting the thoughts out there in the atmosphere. and then organizing them. You don't know what you can do, and like everything starts with a thought. Everything starts with a thought. Even your podcast started with a thought. And, and from that thought, you put that on a mind map, and then, you just think about things that are related to that. And, you can go from there, and it's infinite and limitless what can come from that single thought.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes mind maps can be really personal. And then my question is would that open up opportunities to create maybe a group map? And if not a group map, maybe a one-on-one with one other person. And then that way you can keep each other accountable as far as looking for another job or establishing a plan B. Is that something that you could work with?
That's a new concept. I never really thought about it as a tool as a collaboration tool. But yeah, I would be open to doing something like that. I've never. That's a new concept for me, using a mind map as a collaboration tool. Like, the tool that I use it for was basically to organize my thoughts in my own writing. But I guess it would be definitely useful as a collaboration tool as well.
Well, I'm thinking one of the downfalls of this working from home, and I can't call it phenomenon because it's been, the argument's been about the past 20 years, but for this year you just have an overwhelming number of people that are home. And so one thing that we're finding is that we're human and we need that human interaction, hence the, signing up with the lunch club for virtual lunches and just having that interaction outside of your four walls. As an individual, sometimes it's great to be in the four walls, but then there's others to really reach your potential when you have that collaboration. And if you've been there, done that, right? Like you've had a job, not had a job, looking for a job, all the whole processes. And it may be, I guess are we having a visioning session instead of a podcast of what the next level that Sonia's going into?
My next level?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So thanks for playing with me and humoring me with this. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because that was, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I would just think that was where I wanted to put a pin as to the first part, because it was very physical, third dimension. These are the things you do, develop a mind map. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the whole other side of co-creating. And so I know that you have some steps that you can work towards of acing a job search journey, or winning at work, or winning at finding out your next profitable hobby. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what kind of steps can you take to stay motivated. And I do want to spend some time with the co-creating and communicating with energies inside you or outside you.
Right. So one of the things that I can say is, one of the tips that I can say is, the first one is to rehearse your wins. And, a lot of times people downplay their success, and they won't record or, think significant of things that they've done to help their employer out, processes that they have improved, ways they've saved the company money, how they've wowed the customer. They don't make a record of that, and that's something that's very important when you're trying to take your next step in your career, or when you're even trying to negotiate your salary, I mean, you need to know when you've had wins in your career, and you need to have a narrative around that win, stating something specific that you have accomplished. So that's one of the first strategies that I would state. I
want to stay there for a second, because when you talk about downplaying your success, I know, and this is a conversation more so for social media, right? So there's some that, if I'm a success, I don't need to broadcast it. But then there's the other of, if I'm broadcasting it too much, then you invite the gremlins, who does this person think they are? And then the third part would be the survivor's guilt, right? It could be, wow, everybody's going through such a hard time, but I'm not. So you don't want to post that either. So how do you get around those three in the realm of 2020 when everyone's spending so much time on social media?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the best way to do it is tread lightly and state the facts. I mean, it's not bragging if it's factual, right? Mm-hmm. So, and a good place to state those facts is, when it comes to business, is the website LinkedIn. Like, if you want to toot your horn, that's the place to do it, because it's not only seen by your colleagues, but it's seen by people in your industry as well as future employers. So if you're going to, toot your own horn, state the facts and put it somewhere where it will make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good point when you said for your industry and companies looking to hire, because there is a massive migration across the country from California or New York, where they're realizing, like you said, in RTP, the buildings are empty, and we're looking for places, better cost of living. And as I mentioned earlier, we've lost business. The state of Georgia has lost business to RTP. So by them not downplaying their success, it would actually, if they're on LinkedIn and making a robust profile, then larger companies could be looking at their resume and before they even move here. So you have no idea who's even looking at it. If you have the free version. If you have the paid version, you can see who's looking at your profile. But nonetheless,
right, yeah, you got to pay to see what's going on. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Sure. And so that was just one. So what are some other tips that we can do to ace the job journey and just winning at work and overall life?
Well, one of the things, and this is very helpful to people who procrastinate and think it might be overwhelming to actually search for a new role, or think it might be, overwhelming to do anything to advance their career, is to take a baby step every day towards your career goal or towards that, plan B. Just do something every day, even if it's just something small, to advance towards that goal. And, in James it says faith without works is dead. So you have to put the work in order to, move forward. And one of the things, there's a tool on my website, blessthework.com. It's called 21 Days of Preparation for Your Next Career Role. And in that, it gives baby steps that you can take on a daily basis that will allow you to take that giant leap towards your next career. Things like, doing keyword searches for your next role, updating your skill set, taking training. And there's a lot of training on LinkedIn as well. I should get them to, sponsor me, because I'm thinking a lot about LinkedIn.
Well, they could ultimately. they could ultimately, if you're doing these group mind maps, right, word's going to get out, and right, and it could be a global thing. So, hey, who knows? I mean, 2020 is full of surprises, and there's no accident. So yeah, don't downplay your success.
Gotcha.
I do want to ask you this part. I want to ask you the biggest part, and you left it for last. I think it's the biggest because I really believe in 2020, initially, right after the shock kind of wore off, we're trying to fill the time with weapons of mass distraction. So that's, social, the YouTubes and Netflix and all that. And then I've seen everything that I can possibly see, and now I'm in this quiet. And so I want you to talk a little bit about step 6, because I think it's probably the most important out of everything that we've talked about thus far.
Right. And that is definitely spending time with God. I think for me, and I can only speak to my experience, is, if I find myself out of balance, if I find myself in a state of fear, afraid, and anxiety, the best place for me to go is to get alone with God and pray and let Him talk to me, like listen to that still small voice, and read scriptures. And inevitably, there is always an answer. There's always an answer, and it may not come to you right away, but eventually you'll find the answer. And I really do believe that's God leading you. And it's imperative. That's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is to give people something to say until they find their own voice. And I think it's the secret to a very successful job search. And I think it's a key for a lot of job seekers is communication with God, letting Him download instructions to you on what to do next. Because every career is unique as your DNA. Like my skills and talents and experience is totally different from yours. But God knows what those skills and talents and abilities are. And He knows where they'll be used the best. And He's the one that can open the doors for you.
So how are you determining or filtering whether it's God talking to you or it's your ego that's talking?
I tell you, personally, for me, it's how I know it's God or my ego is when it's God, I have a peace about it. I have peace. When it's me, I'm anxious about it, and I'm not sure about it, and it just doesn't click. But when it's God, I definitely have a peace and a confidence, with that decision that I'm making.
Now, let me ask you about the different times of day. So for me, my mind's always racing. And for my communication or my relationship with the Creator is usually in the middle of the night, so 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, or when I first wake up. And the way I interpreted it was because my ego it's shut down. It's no filter. And so, like you said, that peace kind of comes in for me at those times. Are you able to discern different times of day where you have a greater communication, where you're getting that sense of peace?
Yeah, I'm the total opposite. I think for me, it's like in the quiet of the night, like in the late night. That's when I'm the most creative and and I have a peaceful moment, then sometimes it comes in the morning. I mean, for me, I'm all over the place. It's not a consistent time. I mean, unless I make it, like sometimes I make time to say, okay, this is just going to be me and God. And what I'll do is I'll take a walk and just get in tune with nature and just walk around and just pray while I walk. I call it the walk and pray. And but everybody has their own unique way of communicating with God. And I just feel like it's not how you do it or when you do it, it's that you do it. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. That was one thing of at the beginning of COVID was, get outside and get some sun. Not only are you getting that fresh air, you just reminded me of some of the Buddhist areas that we have here in Atlanta, and they do the walking prayer. And so you have a combination of prayer and meditation. And as I learned it was prayer is when you're talking to God, as meditation is when you're listening. And so thanks for reminding me of that, for that walking prayer and just getting out. And if you are in the house all day, you're not getting that fresh air that you're getting when you used to have to go to work and work out, and it's just really interesting. So I just want to thank you for that walking prayer. But as a guy being competitive, and I always want to be number one or no number one, in your book, there's 21 prayers for the job seeker. I want to know, what's your number one prayer? What's your favorite prayer?
I put it first because I wanted everybody to have access to that prayer. And it wasn't even in the book until the end. And when I wrote it, I was like, this has to be number one. This has to be first. So you can read it free on Amazon, where the book is. You can listen to it free on Amazon because it's also an audiobook. But not the whole book, but just this first prayer. You can listen to it free. And it's a prayer about fear, because fear of people and fear of the unknown and fear of, fear of failure, that's what grips a lot of people when it comes to, career transition. And I wanted to put that on the table and resolve that issue first before approaching anything else in the book. So that's my favorite one.
That's awesome. It makes me think of Neville Goddard. Are you familiar with Neville?
No, I'm not.
So Neville was in the 1920s, and he became more popularized by Wayne Dyer. Wayne used a lot of his teachings, and he always talked about ego, and spelling it out, EGO, was edging God out. And I think it ties in to what you were saying about that whole fear. If you're in that fear and anxiety, what have you, that's your ego not being in that calm to get that peace of mind for that communication. You're actually edging God out. Yeah.
Wow.
So I appreciate you for not even, just if you didn't do the whole book, the audio version is, because I'm a total audiophile now and go through a lot of books that way. So
I do too. That's why I decided to. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's great. If more people did that, just the consumption of the books would be even higher if more people had the audio version of their books.
Yeah. The audio version is only 30 minutes, and I think it's like $3.95. It's not hard on the pocketbook at all. So, but because I consume like 95% of my books via audio, I was like, I can't write a book and not have an audio version of it. And the young lady the narrator that did it, she is an amazing narrator. It won't put you to sleep at all. It's action-packed. I'll put it like that. She
Sure.
did. Everybody was like, "Why didn't you read your own book?" I was like, "Because I'm not as talented as this narrator."
Well, I'm sure your narrator is probably going to ask you my next question. And when is the next book coming out?
Well, I do have a companion manual that's coming out. I'm trying to get it published before Christmas. It's going to allow people to journal their own prayers about their career, and it also has a job search organizer that allows people to keep a record of their job search and the contacts and times and places of interviews and all of the details, that you have to keep track of in a job search. So that's coming out right before Christmas, hopefully in November time frame. And then my next book, the one that I wrote first, I want to publish that in 2021. So there's more to come.
Very nice, very nice. Oh, man, so we got her before she became famous.
What do you mean before I became famous?
Well, you're already famous, but I'm just saying, when I've written 25 books and ha, ha, ha. So.
You are funny.
Well, no, I think it speaks to your success, and I think the biggest takeaways are you found ways to overcome fear no matter the circumstance, and realizing that there's things bigger than you, but there's also a creator that has your best interests at heart. So you are aligning those two, and I think that's why you're a beacon, and I think that's why your light is shining. And so with that, if you can please say the name of the book one more time, your website, how people can get in touch with you, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, sure. The name of the book is God, Please Help Me Find a Job, 21 Prayers for the Job Seeker. My website is 𝓝𝓮𝓮𝓭. That's BLESSTHEWORK.com. And you can reach out to me on Instagram at @BlessTheWork and on Facebook at @BlessTheWork. And my name is Sonia Cameron.
Awesome. And with that, you have just been in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza and Sonia. It was a pleasure. Let's definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.